It really started after I finished business school, working for a newspaper back in the mid-50s. I had done probably 7 summers of work with a newspaper, but this was more of a management training program, and it started in the production department and then worked into credit, more advertising back in the newsroom, then some of the branch offices. So that went on for about 4 years. At that point, we acquired a paper in Western Maryland, and my job was to go there and to help run it, and did that for a couple of years. And then the senior executives there chose to retire, and I continued to work there for probably another 9 or 10 years, and then I came back to South Bend, which was the home office. My father was preparing to retire at the time of the centennial, and at that point I took over the publisher and editorship of the newspaper. The executive that we had running the holding company chose to retire, and I stepped into his job. All in all, I was working at the South Bend paper and the other operations, including the broadcast, for about 51 years full-time. I got involved in the newspaper business and later broadcast because of family. My father had gone to work for his uncle, and then I went to work for my great uncle, and then my father. My father had surveyed my siblings, and they said, no, situation, let Frank do it. So Frank did it. We wanted to grow the company, so part of the job was to add other components to it. We were usually in an acquisition mode, and so we started out probably when I was first there with maybe 2 or 3 components. We wound up with over 20. And that was fine, except for the fact that I had to go visit everything. So the home office became my airport of choice. And we had operations scheduled from Alaska to southern Florida and from southern California to Pennsylvania. So I was a pretty good friend of the airlines, the rental car people, and the various motels that I stayed at. You add on top of that the various conventions and trade shows, so you're probably gone about every week. I was lucky enough occasionally to squeeze in a little vacation, and my favorite activity, which was fishing, I did get some of that in. It didn't slip by the wayside. Both my parents had gone to good colleges and good universities. They both had advanced degrees, so it became pretty clear to me early in life that I wasn't going to be able to sit around some college in Indiana and drink beer for 4 years. That was out of the question. And when I was about 13, I think, my dad and I had one of those come to Jesus meetings. And I said, okay, if you expect me to qualify for and then attend a first-rate university, what school around here would probably best prepare me? And at that time, my father, who had done some interviewing for scholarship students, said, well, I would look at Culver Military Academy. And it was interesting, the first day I arrived was the day that they signed the peace treaty on the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. So we just come out of World War II, and the idea of going to a military school was not anything unusual. Matter of fact, it looked like maybe good preparation, because we had no idea what was going to happen the following year or so. And that was very fortunate for me, because when I got to college, I got 2 years credit for ROTC. And that allowed me to take the other 2 years, no additional cost, and at graduation at least have a reserve degree in the Army as a junior officer. Well, lo and behold, the Korean War broke out. I was very glad I had done that. I figured, well, I know it's not going to be easy serving as a junior officer, but it'd probably be better than serving as a private. 2 years in the Army as a junior officer was a great awakening for me. It's very difficult when you're about 21, 22 years old to look some grizzled veterans in the eye and say, yeah, I'm the guy who's supposed to keep you out of harm's way. It's a tough sell. I was able to apply again to graduate school, and it worked out fairly well. I got a master's in business administration, which was really where I was headed, as opposed to, say, law school or some other professional career. I think probably the best thing I was able to do was to build a strong team to continue what they had been doing, and it was just my nephew when he took over my job. We were quite fortunate in attracting good people despite our small size. And I think my job there was to create a climate where they could do their best work. I could step aside and watch them. I always figured that I was the least important person in the cog in the machine, and that if I went off and did something, and in one case I did, everything would run smoothly. And I did have a chance to go and be a consultant in East Asia, in both South Korea and the Philippines, and another assignment into Thailand, where I'd never spent any time before, and which was a brand new world for me, as it would have been for anybody under those circumstances. And everything seemed to run fine. I got back, picked up the reins again, and continued. We had broadcast operations, we had print operations, we had shoppers, we were coming into the internet, we had both radio and TV, and we had acquired cable later on. So there were a lot of balls to keep bouncing around in the air, and I was extremely fortunate, maybe more by trial and error, but in identifying good people who were very happy to join our organization and would prove to me their competence. We thought it was important to give back to the communities that we were involved in. And when I lived in Indiana, I did that. When I lived in Maryland, the same thing was true. And that was not just true on the local level, it was also true statewide. I did serve on some national boards, but giving back to the community that gave to us was paramount. And that we tried to infuse throughout our organization in all of the different places where we had properties. And we thought it was important, and it's still one of our major things in the companies where we are. Companies have changed a lot, but those type of values were there before, and they will continue to be there. I think probably the people that were most influential in my life were my parents, both my mother and father, but in different ways. And my father certainly influenced my career choice. But my mother's father was in the same career, so she had grown up the same way I had, at the dinner table, listening to all of his talks. That that might be something I'd like to give a try to. And I think secondly, then when I moved to Maryland, the publisher and his wife almost became like foster parents to me. He was a former governor of the state, former attorney general, personally very accomplished, with many achievements, and with a great sense of humor. And I spent a fair amount of time at their house, and we just enjoyed each other's company. But he also was helpful in getting me started in service to the state, because he knew people that could appoint me to a commission or something that would be helpful. He was very helpful with me around the community, and so he broke a lot of ice that would have taken me a longer time to do if I just had to do it on my own. I would say those are probably my parents, and the governor and his wife were the two most instrumental in helping me. Well, I'd love to have family members, particularly younger ones, watch the video. And I think in that case, if we were to discuss legacy, that it primarily consists in two areas. One would be in education, and one would be in conservation. I think if you're taking a look at things that should be continued, that in the conservation area, that we're really just stewards here on this earth. And we should leave this not only as we found it, but perhaps a bit better. I think you have to have pretty high goals. You want a real hurdle, not just something you can step over. And if you set your goals high, and even if you may not achieve all of them, you probably will have achieved quite a bit more than you realize. If you are going to start your own business, find out who does what you want to do well, because you can learn a lot from that. If you want to find out who didn't do well, that's probably important also, so you don't have those pitfalls. Get the best people you can. I definitely think you should find your strengths, avoid your weaknesses, and pray. Well, I think your family gives you support. I mean, knowing that they are there for you, that they have your back, probably gives you more courage and to go out and try things that you might not have been able to do before, or would have at least been reluctant to do. When you can join hands together, as families do, I think that's key.